Modern Horizons 2 is here, and it is an absolute unit of a set. The amount of cards, the complexity of the limited environment, and the price of it all is insane. It's also the first non-standard set like this to have a pre-release kit available, and we can draft and play in a pre-release with it, so that's pretty cool, even if it is expensive, because who needs money anyway, am I right? Okay, quick set details to know before we jump into the archetypes and draft strategies. There are 303 cards in this set, and those of you who play or are interested in Modern will appreciate that cards numbered 1 through 261 are reprints and new cards coming into Modern, and cards from 262 to 303, those are all reprints, but cards that are new to Modern. Neat. And when you hear me say this set is complex, here's why. This set creates 21 different types of tokens. We have over 50 mechanics showing up throughout the set with a new variant of Trample, with Trample over Planeswalkers, which means excess damage goes over the Planeswalker to its controller. Pretty intuitive. And then product-wise, you can buy Modern Horizons 2 cards in draft boosters, set boosters, collector booster packs, and if you're wondering, with all these cards and products, what kinds of fancy versions of the card you may want appear where, well, here's a chart you can look over to see how obnoxious sets are getting. But hey, pros and cons to everything, right? And this means we all have more options depending on our budgets. Super. Okay, on to the draft archetypes, which in Modern Horizons 2, all 10 dual color pairings work. And if you've drafted Modern Horizons or Master sets before, you know these decks can get pretty spicy and go in a few different directions within the same color pair. I'm going to keep this guide focused on the theme of the archetype and the top cards to look for that may signal that lane is open to have the strongest deck. Starting with blue-white artifacts matter and affinity for artifacts. Our draft goals here, we want early cheap artifacts to help make our more expensive artifact spells cheaper, and we can either combo off massive value plays or just play better spells than our opponent. Artifact lands are good in other decks, but probably the best or close to the highest valued in this build. We also have dual-colored indestructible tap artifact lands in the set. Power Depot is great too if we want to splash. Early picks, I love to see our rares like Nettlecyst to make any creature we play a problem. Thought Monitor helps you draw cards. Esper Sentinel, it fits other archetypes, but if we see it mid to late in a pack, that can be very encouraging that the lane is open. Spells I like to pick up mid to late pack are cards like Chrome Courier, Barbed Spike. I like this one a lot because it's 2 artifacts for 2 mana. We can snag early game artifact creatures that if they stick around add to our affinity for artifacts, but if they get removed, can help other creatures turn into our win con like Vidalcan Infiltrator or Filigree Attendant. This is the color combo for you if you see a lot of artifacts being passed around, if you want an easier way to have your cards synergize together just for being on the battlefield. That's blue-white artifacts in a nutshell. Now, blue-black is self-discard matters, and there's so many ways to discard a card and gain value from it. The challenge, of course, is keeping cards in our hand. Draft goals, we want ways to discard cards. We want cards that benefit us for doing so, and we need card draw or looting effects to keep the value coming. Now, card draw we can get from Lucid Dreams and Mental Journey. We can loot with Raving Visionary. Guildblade Prowler helps us draw more cards in some ways, and then Master of Death works great with our gold cards to keep the party going. If you see any of these gold cards being passed around mid or late in a pack, chances are the lane is open. Scuttle Tide and Feast of Sanity are personal favorites that let you gum up the board with endless 0/3 crabs that hopefully eventually get pumped up. And pinging something all the time just feels good. Also look out for all the black creatures with madness, namely Necrogoyf, which I'm sure will raise some eyebrows for the more tenured Modern player, but if I'm in black and I want to discard cards, I am drafting every copy of Kitchen Imp that comes my way. Scourge Familiar is also a nice combo piece here. We can discard our Imp, trigger all of our discard synergies, get the mana to play the Imp for free. This archetype, it just feels like one of the most fun to play, but you have to manage your resources well to not run out of cards in hand before you've ruined your opponent's plans. So yeah, there you go. In a similar vein, black-red is where self-discard can benefit your very aggro madness-focused deck. It loves the madness creatures, and Chainer Nightmare Adept is our perfect gold card to bring this all together. Also, this card and its obscene name, point is it's great in this build because of value. I'd wind up in this archetype because I start with the big bomb in red or black, and then I keep picking up good madness cards throughout the draft. Looking at how overwhelming aggro can be in the set, red-black is probably the top option here because discarding cards is often, to us, one benefit from the discarding effect, and then making our next spell cheaper is that added benefit that gives us an advantage and builds a lead that hopefully our opponent cannot recover from. It's madness, it's chaotic, it's everything Black and Red hopes to be, and Modern Horizons 2 should be loved by all followers of Rakdos. I've seen this deck do very well without even having the rares. Just getting enough of the madness discard creatures can do wonders and build a quick board out crazy fast. It's just, yeah, it's crazy. Okay, now red-green is Storm, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm hesitant about it as a color combo because you really need the synergy of multiple cards to reach that peak Storm value, which often means it's harder to pull off. But if you do, well, you can often win in that following turn. Our gold card helps us build that base. They lead us to the Road of Ruin, well, really our opponent to the Road of Ruin, and then we can have 5 Storm cards that can benefit us when we get the train rolling. Other nice cards are Ragavan, which helps us create a treasure token, comes back to our hand so we can cast it in a later turn and keep that Storm count going. I like Captain Ripley Vance a ton. If you can get that third spell cast and start blowing stuff up, that always feels awesome. And then ideally we can play cheap spells to get the Storm count up, like Strike It Rich, or use spells' alternate casting option, like Sacking a Mountain, rather than using mana, or playing your Suspend cards at the right time. I mean, point is, depending on how committed you are to the Storm game plan, you got options in this set to then build up to the most explosive turn possible. And then you go all out, either you win with that big play because now you have 100 4/4 beasts ready to charge in, or you don't. And if you don't, it's probably because your opponent played something that made you just say. And that takes us to the white-black deck, which is focused on reanimation effects and 1/1 counters. And I guess I say 1/1 counters because really any deck that plays white will appreciate the 1/1 counters. I just like this archetype a lot because it's so creature-focused and can utilize the value of our early plays to help creatures scale into the mid and late game. And then once there, our bombs should bring us home. Gold cards can carry us to victory from the value they generate, because if our opponent doesn't have exile effects, or even if they have early removal, we should be able to overwhelm them eventually with that reanimation. We definitely want a lower curve in this archetype. Those white creatures with modular help a lot too. We can build up our graveyard with stuff recurring, usually by discarding it for another effect. Then hopefully we are able to pick up a bomb like Archon of Cruelty, Archfiend of Sorrows, and Sarah's Emissary. If these land on the battlefield, it should be pretty brutal and borderline, hopefully, impossible for our opponent to come back. The bigger point, I hope you're starting to realize, is the gold cards are often some of, if not the highest value plays for an archetype. So if you're seeing multiple of the same archetype being passed, that could be a sign the card is very weak or the lane is very open. Moving on to white-green, which is allegedly the most 1/1 counter-focused archetype, draft goals here is we just want whatever we have on board to keep getting bigger, or at least always have the biggest, scariest creature on the board. This is not the most complex archetype to follow. You just really need to look out for cards that mention or care about 1/1 counters. Early plays like Duskshell Crawler make everything that much more of a threat with Trample. Herd Baloth is one of our biggest value engines if it sticks around for any amount of time. And then we really appreciate proliferate effects. So Smell Fear is great for what we are doing and will be one of our better removal options. And then we can also go enchantment focused with green and the green-white being our best combo for it. Cards like Silthis are Enchantress Presence reprint, and if you're wondering if you can take too many captured by Lagax, the answer is no. I would play 5 or more of these things if I can. Take them all, go tall, and just trample over for the win. Now black-green, this has to be a fan favorite. It's all about self-sacrifice and squirrel tribal. Chitter Spitter, easily one of the best named cards in the set, and obnoxiously powerful if you can generate tokens. Oh look, it can make tokens for you. How convenient. Our other gold cards and legendary Chatterfang just help our board get crazy big. Scurry Oak is great, Squirrel Sovereign is nice. Our draft goal here is just pray no one else is interested in squirrels, and we can get into a situation where we are running rampant with ankle biters that get buffed by their fellow ankle biters and just keep fueling whatever sacrifice needs we may have and always come out ahead. If we get a good enough build where we can curve out well, we can go aggro. Or if we want to just gum the board up, we should be able to drain our opponent out too. This archetype can win multiple ways. Really the point is if you like to go wide, this is probably the widest board you'll see is in this archetype. Although blue-green gives it a run for its money. Blue-green is all about tokens, and the number of different tokens you have can matter. Our gold cards all help us make those tokens, give tokens some sort of benefit, or get us cards out of our opponent's library, which definitely seems a little spicy, seeing it in blue-green. Our draft goals here, or the focus of drafting this archetype, is you want cards that either create tokens or care that you have tokens in play. Junkwinder is one of the best cards for this archetype. Yes, it works in many other archetypes, really all the blue archetypes, but in this one, it's just fantastic. And locking down your opponent's creatures for essentially free is super good. A nifty combo is playing Academy Manufactor, and then the next turn playing Tireless Provisioner. Play a land, and now you have 3 tokens every time a land ETBs for you. It's pretty nuts. Well, maybe that's more the Squirrel Tribal appropriate, but you get the point. If you like value builds, if you like tokens, if you start to like the artifact equipment cards and want to make sure you have as many different creature types to wield them into battle, this could be the archetype for you. Then we have White, Red, and Boros in the set, and it's all about that modular life. We see plenty of 1/1 counter shenanigans are afoot, and Zabaz is all about that life. This actually is probably the most aggro color pair that wants all of those 1, 2, or 3 drops with modular. They want to get into combat. They want to get those counters moving around however best serves them. And rares to keep in mind are bombs like Nykthos Paragon, any big flying angels or dragons in white. I mean, there's definitely a few aggro lines we can go in the set, but if we keep something on the board, especially something with modular, keeping that power around and continuously building up our threats can get to a point, or should get to a point, where we're unstoppable. Worst case scenario is our best creature gets locked down or bounced, and then we may struggle to rebuild. In that case, Abiding Grace can be invaluable and helps us deal with that. But hey, it's aggro. Sometimes you put all your eggs in the basket, you gotta commit to your game plan, and you're just not able to win before your opponent can stabilize. Sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. Stay focused, don't give up too early, and find those creative ways to get in for those final points of damage. Then there's Blue-Red, and it's focused on Delirium, which I was surprised by at first, to be honest. We've seen plenty of ways cards going into the graveyard can help, but I guess in a way here's another. And it fits well in this color pair because we should have plenty of instants and sorceries to cast. Creatures shouldn't be a problem to wind up in the graveyard, and then we should be able to get a land or artifact in there somehow, some way, to get to the 4 we need to activate Delirium. There's not a ton of enchantments we're probably playing or easily getting into the graveyard. The thing I like about this archetype is how well it scales from the early and mid game into the late game. As our graveyard fills up, all of our spells with Delirium get better. They don't necessarily need other cards around or on the battlefield to get that bonus value. But don't get me wrong, not all our cards should have to wait for Delirium. I'm happy playing big dragons too and doing blue-red things until our big flying flyers come in to finish the job. This archetype feels really fun too, but it brings the same challenges blue-red seems to often have, which is don't be greedy with spells and forget to play enough creatures so that you don't get taken out before you can get going. Now we do have one more archetype to look at, and that is 5-color fun stuff, with the Converge cards being your big value plays. And this is not a crazy idea. We have basic land cyclers in every color. There's ramping and fixing in green with Terramorph. We got Yavimaya Elder, Road to Ruin. Really, this is possibly a green-based deck with splashing other high-powered spells, or I would expect it to be a red-green base that then splashes in all the really exciting, fancy cards. I would just say you really want to hope to get at least a copy or 2 of Kaleidoscorch. That's going to be your win from nowhere card. That's where you're hitting for 8 to 10 damage in a turn. This is also the if you win with it, you win the set challenge. And if you do, you got to come back, tell me how it went. Tell me how you wound up in this deck in the comments. Let me know what sweet plays you had to win the game. Or if it was just Scion of Draco being the one that takes everything over as soon as it hits the board. If you play this and you win with it, please let me know how that goes. That takes me into my draft tips. Now, removal is limited in this limited environment. You may realize I didn't show much removal in those archetype cards, and that's because the set doesn't have a ton of it. Every color, yes, has a couple options, but this set seems to be encouraging a lot more combat and trading of cards on the battlefield rather than just straight up removal or counter magic. But you also need to make sure you grab your own high synergy cards. So my tip here for finding your lane is look for what gold cards and removal is being passed your way. If removal options are limited, if the gold cards are the highest synergy or often one of the bigger value plays for an archetype, seeing those get passed your way means that lane is most likely open. And then of course we're always wondering about splashing. It's definitely doable and I would say encouraged in this set. We see plenty of archetypes that have strategies that blend into others. There's 3-color cards in this set that bring a ton of power as well to those 3-color builds. I would highly recommend watching some draft videos, watching someone stream, just trying to see how other players approach this set, especially pro players, the decks they build, how they build them, why they build them. That can just be a great way to better understand it without having to pay the $25 or so to jump in and try it out yourself. And lastly, another reminder, just double check card prices before you start an event like this or a draft, assuming you get to keep all the cards you draft. Now let's wrap this up with how I approach drafting the set. Early on, I just pick the highest powered cards I see. If I open up a bomb, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy to grab that. And then after the first couple picks, I start reading a bit more into what colors and gold cards are being passed my way. I start to try to find whatever lane is open. If I have to come off my early picks, that's fine. If I need to work in how to splash that, I can start to prioritize that. But find your bombs early on. Find whatever removal or gold cards are getting passed your way early. And then from there, fill in whatever holes you find. And hopefully it should be easier because you found the open lane come pack 2 into pack 3. And even though the set may be complex, good fundamentals are still needed because aggro is very viable. Mid and late game builds are also viable. So you want a nice curve to make sure you can build or make sure you can do something or multiple things every turn. Because if you're not, chances are your opponent probably is. And remember to have fun and don't give up too early. Just because things don't go your way the first few plays in a game, you got to believe in the deck you built. You're going to do well. Things are going to work out for you. This seems like a great set in a great limited environment, which Wizards has done an incredible job of building consistently awesome limited environments. And even though the set's complex, I think once you give yourself some time to get comfortable with it, you're going to really enjoy it. So with that, thank you for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you to Card Kingdom for sponsoring the channel. Check them out. Buy the singles you want. Buy the sealed product you need. Use my affiliate link in the description. It just lets them know I sent you. And of course, thank you to my patrons. Y'all are the best. Can't say it enough. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see y'all in the next video, my friends. Take it easy. Good luck in those drafts. Peace.